If you've been watching this channel for more than a month or so, you may have noticed a bit of a change. My normal camera and lenses that I use for landscape photography have been conspicuously absent, and instead this little setup here, which is normally behind the scenes shooting video, has actually been centre stage doing the landscape photography bit. So what's going on? Why am I shooting with this instead of my normal gear? And perhaps more importantly, what effect has it had on my photography? I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. For the last 3 years or so, I've had a pretty standard setup that I've been taking out on all my photography shoots. I'm not going to go through a full kit list, but it was a full frame Nikon D810, some big expensive pro level high quality lenses, obviously a tripod, and then because I'm making videos I've been using this, the Canon M50, as a vlogging camera with a microphone and another tripod for this, and various other bits and pieces. And then of course if I'm out doing any kind of hiking for a distance, I might need some hiking gear, and then I need water, very important, particularly in the warmer months here. I can often be carrying 3 litres of water with me. And then of course I need a big backpack to carry that all in. And it's pretty heavy. I mean, on a summertime hike, I can easily be carrying 15 kilos. Now that might not be too bad for some people, but when I was younger, I managed to injure my neck, my back, and one of my knees. And the fun thing about injuries that you get when you're younger is, as you get older, they like to cause you some aches and pains from time to time. And one of the things that's likely to trigger that is carrying a lot of heavy stuff over long distances and difficult terrain. And yeah, I've certainly been feeling some of that, but I've just kind of accepted the aches and pains as being something that I kind of had to put up with. But then in February, I had a particularly bad occurrence. I did some hiking in the mountains, did some woodland photography, and for a week afterwards I was in quite a lot of pain, because whether it was the way I'd fitted the backpack or the terrain or whatever it was, but it really caused me some problems. And it was about a week before I actually felt I could go out again. And even then I really didn't feel like I could cope with carrying that amount of weight. So what I decided to do was take the Canon M50 as my stills camera, and just take my GoPro as a video camera. So making the system very, very lightweight. Now this is something that I have talked about doing before, using this setup, this lightweight setup, for when the main purpose of the trip is exploration rather than photography. But when the main purpose of the trip is photography, then I kind of always wanted to have the best quality gear with me to get the best quality images. And let's face it, most of the time when I'm going out, I'm thinking I'm going out to do photography. So this lightweight setup hardly ever sort of saw the light of day. But on this occasion it did. And it was immediately after that trip out that I made a decision. And the decision was that I was going to set myself a little project or challenge, whatever you want to call it, that for 2 weeks or 3 or maybe a month, I was only going to use this lightweight setup. So the Canon M50 with 11 to 22 lens, 15 to 45 lens, 55 to 200 lens, and as I said, using the GoPro to create the video content. And that meant not only did I have a much lighter camera and smaller camera, but I could have a much lighter and smaller bag to put it in. Obviously the video gear was much lighter. And I was able to get the weight I was carrying down from sort of 14 to 15 kilos down to 6.5, 7.5 kilos, something like that, which is obviously a big difference in weight. And basically the last month, well, certainly 4 weeks, that's what I've been using. I've been using this lightweight setup for all of my landscape photography. And I thought I'd share with you how it's affected me, how it's affected my photography, and how it's affected the entire photographic process, actually. So I very quickly realised a few things. And the first thing was I was walking further. I mean, I was walking a lot further. And I've always loved walking. Walking is one of the things actually that got me into landscape photography in the first place, just the enjoyment of being out and walking. But I've got to be honest, I think over the last year or so, or maybe longer, I haven't been enjoying it quite as much because I've been carrying all that gear and it's kind of taken the enjoyment out of the walking. It's become a chore, something that I've had to do to get to a location to do photography, rather than something that I've been enjoying just for the sake of it. And what I've found is that because I'm carrying so much less weight, I've rediscovered the love of walking. I've really been enjoying it. And not only the distances that I've been walking, but also I've been tackling terrain that I would probably have hesitated to try with, the heavy gear, either because it was, too much like hard work, maybe climbing up some steeper hills, but also, when you're carrying a lot of gear, some uneven terrain can feel a little unsafe. You can feel unbalanced and, at a bit of risk of hurting yourself. But with the lighter gear, I've been able to get to places that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to get to. And that's got to be a good thing, because it means I'm finding alternative locations, alternative scenes, alternative compositions. And when I'm actually getting to the point that I'm ready to do some photography, I've got more enthusiasm and more energy because I haven't exhausted myself on the walk there, because I haven't been carrying all the heavy gear. And that means I'm much more likely to spend the time finding absolutely the best scene I can shoot, rather than maybe settling for something that's easy. Just cutting back on all of that weight has made a massive, massive difference to my enjoyment of all of the processes that go around being out and doing photography. And that's got to be a good thing, right? So does this mean that it's time to invest in a lighter landscape photography solution? Maybe going to a full frame mirrorless like the Nikon Z series, or maybe even the Canon R, I don't know. Or the same route that others have done with the Fuji X-T4 or an X-T3, or maybe even Micro Four Thirds with the Olympus range. Well, to answer that, I think I need to go back and just revisit that topic that kept me reaching for my big Nikon gear all the time, and that was wanting the best image quality. Because for sure, this camera has a smaller sensor. It's a 1.6 crop rather than full frame. It has less megapixels. It's 24 instead of 36. And perhaps more importantly, these lenses, small and light, and in comparison, relatively cheap compared to the big, heavy, high-level, expensive, optically superb lenses that I have been using. And that was always my concern about using this for photography, was what kind of image quality can I get? And there is, inevitably some degree of reduction in image quality using this system. But you know what? This camera with these lenses, in particular this 11-22 and this 55-200, the quality is actually not just good, it's really good. The 15-45 is perhaps not the best lens, but it's still not bad. And that's the one that I would use the least anyway. Yes, you can see a difference if you really, really look for it. You know, if you're viewing the image at a level of detail that's unrealistic, and I'm not just talking about viewing it at 100%, because they're standing up at 100% view. But if you go to 200%, yeah, maybe you can see the quality starting to drop off a little bit. And although I haven't had any large prints done with this yet, that would be a matter of time, but I would fully expect that even large prints are going to stand up pretty well, certainly as large as I'm ever going to want to do them, when they're viewed from a sensible distance. Yeah, if you're going to print, you know, A1 or A0 and then inspect it with a magnifying glass, you may well find some problems. But as long as I'm doing my job properly with this gear, I think the image quality that I'm getting is actually more than good enough for any use that I want to put it to. So for that reason, I'm not sure why I would at this point invest in new camera equipment. For a start, I'm going to have to spend a load of money, but secondly, I'm going to be increasing the weight, because even if I went for the Olympus system or the Fuji system, the weight of camera and lenses combined is still going to be more than this setup is going to be. So if I'm going to make the compromise on money and weight, then I need to know I'm going to be getting something out of it to make it worthwhile. And at the moment, I'm not sure what that would be. So what I need to do is continue shooting with this, continue taking pictures in different scenes and different scenarios and different conditions with this, until I reach the point where I can identify where an upgrade is going to benefit me. And then when I do, I'll have to work out what the best upgrade is going to be. I'm going to leave you with a final thought. There is a famous quote, who said it, I can't remember, but I'll put it on here if I can find it. But the quote is that the best camera is the one that you have with you. Well, landscape photography is not about the camera that you shoot with. A landscape image is not about the camera that it was taken with. A good landscape image is about the scene. It's about the light. It's about the mood. It's about the story. It's very much about the photographer being in the right place at the right time to capture the scene, the light, the mood and the story. So maybe the best camera to have with you is one that lets you get to the right place. And for the moment, for me, that's going to be this. This camera is going to be my go-to camera for the next however long. And then we'll see what happens. What do you think? If you were in my position, would you make a similar decision, or would you do something else? Maybe you've been in my position and you've made your own decision and gone down your own route, in which case I'd love to know. Leave me a comment, let me know. And I'm going to wrap up now and say I hope you've enjoyed this video and this insight into why I've been using this. If you have, please give it a like, share it on social media, and if you're new here and you've enjoyed this, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.